long as Frank can be visible and heard, because
Yes, and I will do my best to spin it around. I mean, I could sit there, but I have to type.
yeah,
So
whatever
it's-
you want.
But
This,
I don't necessarily need to see everyone. So.
if
don't-
anybody wants to, he is right here.
Yeah,
Come on.
If anybody desires to see the chairman, you can just. say
Right.
me. Okay.
I desire.
there you go. You
look
let
like
me know when you,
Ben
you let,
there.
yeah, you let me know when you're ready, Kelly.
I'm ready. I've
Then
got
we're
the
ready.
recording going.
All right, so we'll get started. Thank you everyone for your patience. We'll start the April 25th, 2023 Town of Tuxedo Zoning Board of Appeals at 7:10. As noted in the notice that went out to the public, I'm located down in Key West, Florida this evening. Anyone in Key West who wants to attend this meeting is welcome to join me. If you're not here now, I guess it's a little too late, but it's like 85 degrees and sunny, so maybe y'all wished you were down here. With that, as we call the meeting to order, I believe I see, let's see, we have, okay, all board members are present. Very good. I'd like to just start the meeting with a moment of silence for Andy Rogers. Andy passed away just a few days ago. He had been a fixture in this community well over 50 years. I know at least myself and Russ had the pleasure of serving with him on the zoning board for many years. He was co-founder of the Eagle Valley Fire Department. Before Deborah was doing her phenomenal job in the building department, we had Anita Rogers, Andy's lovely wife, who predeceased him. So I would just ask that we just take a moment of silence for Andy's recent passing. He was a fixture in this town and will be sorely missed. All right, thank you, everyone. With that, we'll move on to the February 28th meeting minutes. Make a motion to accept the minutes from the 28th of February. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. All right, what I would like to do tonight, just because I think it will be easier for some of our applicants, I'm going to turn the agenda around a little bit. Starting with Citrielli, Masunaga, and then we'll go to Skyview. I don't think items 4 and 5 will take as long. So I think therefore, if we can turn the agenda around a little bit, we can get some folks moving on and out of the room. So unless there's a strong displeasure, that is what I'd like to do tonight. I will note that I'm kind of sitting at the table with multiple computers and papers, so I will be popping in multiple screens and looking at multiple documents. If you just bear with me as I look at different items and try to get the right documents up. All right, so like I said, we'll start with Citrielli. That is, again, bear with me as I look at multiple documents on the tiny computer. All right, and this will be for 83 Salerno Road for a shed, and they're requesting an area variance on section 216, block 1, lot 22. The notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Tuxedo will hold a public hearing at the Town Hall in Tuxedo in the County of Orange on the 25th of this month at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter. on the application of John and Susan Cetrielli, owner of record of the property, which is subject of this proceeding. More particularly, section 216, block 1, lot 22 in an R2 zoning district at 83 Solano Road, Tuxedo. This is for the variance from the bulk regulations of the zoning code of the town of Tuxedo to allow for the construction of a shed in the front yard. Public may attend in person or via Zoom with the Zoom link provided. A complete copy of the application is available for public review in the town building department. Any interested person may attend this public hearing. And that was released a couple weeks ago. So with that, Deborah, do we have the mail receipts in hand?
Yes, we do.
Okay, very good. And this does not require County 239 reviews, so we don't have to worry about that. All the other papers I had reviewed previously seem to be in order. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Mr. and Mrs. Cetrielli to explain what they're looking to do and what they're proposing for this evening that requires the variance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The shed is on the upper portion of our, I would call it side yard as you come into our driveway. There for necessity more than anything. It's a very sloped yard. There's not a lot of level areas. There is a level spot all the way in the back, but it wouldn't serve me because to plow my driveway, the snow blower, the snow plow, my tools, I'd have to go, you know, down steps and all the way to the other yard. So it's a good looking drop-in shed. It hides my trailer and some other tools that are up there. So I did it really out of, you know, necessity for storage. And I think it just makes sense where it is. It's screened in. We're happy to do additional screening if necessary. My neighbors are here to testify that it's not an eyesore. It's not encroachment. It did meet the setbacks. It's just that I guess it's considered front yard because it's next to my driveway and in the cul-de-sac.
And this, you moved into the Ted Klein house, right? That's Teddy Klein's old house?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I've been in that house plenty of times, so I know exactly where you're at. Okay.
Yeah. I have some pictures if you need to evidence, you know, what it looks like or where it is. Present them to the board.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
So there's the picture of the shed itself, and then from the road, you see the side of it, and it's, yeah, it's a shed.
I saw.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Joe, are you there in support of this project?
Yes,
Okay, all right. I guess from a technical point of view, and I guess I'll defer to Kelly a little bit. I think members of the board, you've seen this. There is a technical, I guess, issue here in that the code does not permit any accessory buildings or structures in a front yard, and based on our council, we cannot grant a variance that would require really more legislative action. Maybe for all of our benefits, Kelly, you can explain that a little bit more.
Sure. I'm not actually sure where I should be looking because you're now right in front of me.
Look at the public. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Okay, so the code says
Members.
that there's no accessory structures are permitted in the front yard. So any variance that you would be granting would basically be from letting it be in the front yard instead of elsewhere on the property, which would be akin to a legislative action, which would make you the town board. So you're not able to do that. However, in reviewing the application, the applicant actually does have an alternative, which would, it would require a planning board review, but it would also require a variance from this board. And that option is section 9813B, which provides that a detached garage accessory to a single family detached dwelling where the natural slope exceeds 30% within 25 feet of the front lot line, that the planning board may authorize the construction of a garage within the front yard, provided that the garage is set back a minimum distance of 25 feet from the front lot line, and where it is determined that the existing, that exiting the garage and driveway shall not cause a traffic safety hazard. So I think here, this qualifies as a private garage under your town code. So what I would suggest is that the applicant explain to the ZBA, which they already have, but can go into a little bit more detail as to the purpose of the shed, what it stores, the cars, snow blowers, whatever it stores. Let the board know the size and the height of the shed. And then if you're able to establish that the natural slope exceeds 30% within 25 feet of the front lot line, which just looking from Google and talking with the board members earlier, it seems like it's pretty steep. So it doesn't seem like that would be an issue, but it's Google. So, you know, you can only get so close. So if you can demonstrate compliance with the topography and the definition restrictions, which means it's storage of one or more motor vehicles, provided that no business, occupation, or service is conducted for profit therein. So don't operate a business out of there. If you can do that, then the ZBA can consider this an application for an area variance from the minimum side yard setback, which for this would then be 50 feet. The garage has been constructed 22.6 feet from the easterly property, side property line. So then they would be asking for a variance of 27.4 feet from the side yard. I know that was a lot, but it was, since you couldn't do the other way, just trying to look at your code for the applicant, that's kind of where we are. So if they can meet that, then they're asking for a side yard variance from this board, and they would have to go to the planning board for site plan approval. Turning it back over to you.
So I'll turn it back to the applicant. Obviously, you're probably not building a garage in a traditional sense of a garage. But you are building something to store what sounds like to be motorized items. Hearing what our counsel explained, I mean, I guess maybe what you can tell us is, because I didn't get it from the print either, is what's the size, height, what's sort of the aesthetic character of the building you're looking to build. So maybe you can go into that already, or it's already built, I guess, right? So this is really what you call it,
It's not on a foundation. It sits
Yeah.
on, I believe it's 8 by 12. And it stores my snow blower and my plow, which I have a 200-foot driveway that's curved and sloped. And it's the only real place that I can store that stuff. It has to be accessible in a snowstorm. I can't go to my lower yard and get a snow blower out in a snowstorm. So the necessity is there. The slope and the gradient around there does not really lend itself to really too many other spots.
Yeah, I will, man, I'm very familiar with that property. Okay, so anyone from the board, let me, why don't we just start with Russ and work our way down? If there's any questions?
No, I visited the site on Sunday, and they were nice enough to take me, John and his wife, around the whole property. And coming away from there, there was no other place to put this shed. Because the house is built right into bedrock. And then it slopes down to about, I'd say 50 feet to a small opening of a lawn type. Then you got to go up the driveway, which you can't see the shed from the house. And the shed is at the top of the driveway. And that's where he keeps all his snow blowers and stuff like that to clear the driveway. And to move it, I don't know what you would do with it. And it's just, there's nowhere to go with it. It's a steep bank right there behind it. And that's what I found.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I had the chance to drive up to the cul-de-sac and take a look at the property, only as far as the driveway. I didn't enter your property. In fact, I saw you, ma'am, were doing some gardening work. Yeah, my concern is more technical. Well, it is first of all, you have a magnificent home and a magnificent piece of property, and I saw that from the listing, I guess you used to purchase. I mean, there's a video and there's all sorts of great stuff. So I didn't go on the property, but I did get a good sense of it. And it is a magnificent piece of property. I am somewhat troubled by the fact that, as the attorney for the board said, we can't act legislatively with respect to approving this. So we have to find a workaround. And in looking at this workaround, I'm not really sure that the shed qualifies as a garage and storage for motor vehicles. So I'm not sure the legislative intent of this particular workaround section would apply to your particular situation. So I have my doubts, and I just want to put that on the record. Whether this exception really would apply to this particular shed, even though, as I said, you have a beautiful property and you do have a beautiful shed. And I appreciate the fact you're the adjoining neighbors as you're looking at the shed to the left or to the right, to the right. Yeah.
Safely hidden behind some nice landscape.
It is.
You don't even see it.
It's as good as you could hope for under the circumstances. Now, if I may I ask you folks a question?
Sure, we're 80. Yeah. 80
Um,
is what I know.
Okay, when it snows, you have a contractor who plows your driveway, or do you do your own?
A little bit of both,
Okay,
a little bit of both. But we don't do that incline.
yeah, no, I saw the
Yeah.
incline, I didn't walk on it, but I appreciate you coming and certainly supporting your neighbors. Is a great thing,
And they couldn't get a plow down in that driveway to put the snow anyway.
You
You can't get a plow down in there. You got nowhere to go with snow. Yeah.
They've either got to put it near our front door,
Right.
or it's gonna be in front of one of the bays, so it's really a tough.
No, I appreciate the problem, I mean,
Because
based on the topography. As I'm sitting here now, I don't know if you meet the topographic requirements of this particular exception. I mean, I guess you need a surveyor to reach those conclusions about the 30% natural slope. I mean, I don't know anything about that. I accept your representation, but I have no way of making a judgment call on that. So that's my concern, and I appreciate you listening to me. Turn it over to the next one.
Similar comments to Russ, when looked at the property. You know, I don't necessarily see an alternate location for it, considering the use of it. You know, it's definitely a challenging lot, it's a very long driveway. For what it's worth, it's an attractive shed, not an eyesore, so to speak. You know, that's about all I have.
Well, I mean, I think it's great that there's a possible workaround. I mean, I definitely would like to hear more on the workarounds. Are there any other neighbors in that area? I have not had an opportunity to do the drive-by. Besides this couple, are there other homes nearby? Have you received any feedback from any of those neighbors?
Yeah, they have. With everybody in the cul-de-sac and even down the street.
Those neighbors be willing to come to another meeting and or send a letter saying that all the neighbors in the cul-de-sac are fine with it. I think that might be helpful to see.
Could have an affidavit or.
Just a letter.
Yeah.
I mean, just to say where they live. You know I've done that when I've had issues. I've gone to my neighbors and I've done petitions where I've gone and, you know, just to say, because I think it's important for the people that are living nearby. Only because since it is in the front yard, I know for myself that once one person has a shed in the front yard, like for me, my first thought is, great, I'm gonna get a shed in my front yard. Because it is, you know, it is difficult to find great shed placement, and a lot of times you do have to find a way around it. So, I mean, I think you are in a good spot that there is a possible way. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about it. And I'm just also wondering, is this a new shed or has this just been there for so long that now you're trying to like get it correct on the paperwork?
No, we filed for the permit right away when I got the shed. It's less than a year old,
Wow.
but I thought the permit was just gonna be fill out some paperwork and get a permit and
Yeah,
we'd be done with it. It's an odd, I understand the front yard code, I do, but it's an odd setup in the cul-de-sac, I only have I have almost 4 acres,
mhm,
but it's a 50-foot frontage on the cul-de-sac, so it's very narrow. And then as we
so you
have been
got.
saying, no, I filed for the permit and I thought that was it, I'd be good with that. We had the shed ordered, paid for, and then I was made aware that I had to do a variance, so I was like, oh my gosh,
So the shed was purchased prior to getting.
I did the permit and the purchase, thinking, well, I'll do the right thing, get the permit and put this through. And then found out, was notified that I'm gonna have to apply for a variance. I already had a deposit and unfortunately,
Okay,
the thing was delivered.
okay, understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's, as I said, it's not on the foundation. I mean, moving it, there's nowhere else to move it. I mean, you could move it 20 feet away, but that's not really solving the issue of the front yard.
Well, if you did move it 20 feet, would that make a smaller variance for this alternative idea?
I think just looking at the map, I actually think so, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm, again, doing this off Google. You drive in and the driveway kind of goes off to the left and the shed is right there. So moving it another 20 feet would probably put it right in the center of the driveway.
Yeah.
Russ, I know you were there, so I don't know. Oh, even better than the map.
The thing is, it's.
Yeah, I think it would put it right in the middle of the driveway.
Screened in there, so it's very,
Yeah,
it doesn't stand out, it doesn't look like it's, in the middle of the front yard. That's why we kind of put it there, we wanted to think it's less intrusive to everybody.
yeah, it looks like it would likely put it in the driveway
Yeah.
based on
There's a turnaround there, so could we have put it like in front of, then it would just stand right out, it would be very,
You're hiding it, right?
hiding it, yeah.
So when you're considering the elements, the balancing test for side yard setback, I think that's something to take into account is where it's located, character of the community, the screening that is existing, that the board is seeing, things like that. But again, just, I don't know if when you purchased the property, you got a survey when you purchased it, or there was a survey as part of your title. You'd likely be able to use that, take a look at it to check out the slope for the driveway to see,
We got an updated survey.
Oh.
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Okay, most people don't.
Yeah.
So there you go. But that I think is one of the key elements. So whatever this board does necessarily would have to be conditioned upon planning board approval, which would be conditioned upon that element being met.
We could basically vote on the setback and then the other burdens of information, they would have to take that to the planning board.
To the planning board.
And
Yeah, so I'll offer just my comments. I am familiar with the property. Been there several times with prior resident. To Sharon's point, it's not a typical front yard as we might all think of a regular house with the front door looking at to the street or something. It's certainly the front because that's the way the property is laid out, but it is a large piece of property and does go uphill. I think someone noted, I was going to note, but I thought there was a turnaround right down there, and then it was noted there was a turnaround. So there is this sort of point where you can kind of slide, turn around, and you've got other stuff happening at the road edge, and it's a cul-de-sac, and this is Table Rock, so I think everyone's fairly familiar with this area. But this is the back end of Table Rock, so it's pretty much just a couple houses back there. I do have a little bit of a concern about, similar to Mark, about this idea of trying to define what we have here and not create some legislative action. But I'm going to make a comment, and Kelly, tell me if I'm off base. we think of a garage in a traditional sense of putting cars or trucks in them. This talks about motorized vehicles, and in a broad sense, in my mind, that's a gasoline or maybe in the future electric driven vehicle, right? And so we're talking about a large tractor for mowing a lawn could be a motorized vehicle. A large tractor for plowing could be a motorized vehicle. A motorcycle is a motorized vehicle. And it would appear with the dimensions that you could put my definition, and I guess I ask you to correct me if my definition is too broad, motorized vehicles in this accessory building. I'm not going to call it a shed or a garage. I'm just going to call it an accessory building right now. And if that is the case, then that sort of makes me a little bit more comfortable that we're not legislating some sort of action here.
Yeah, the code doesn't define motor vehicle, and normally you would then go to like Webster's or Merriam's third edition of whatever, whichever one your code requires. You wouldn't go directly to the vehicle and traffic laws. So
Yeah.
it is a broader definition. The board would be interpreting this provision in any decision it makes anyways. So however you read it, that's your interpretation, because that element is not defined.
Right. Okay. Joe, did you want to make any comments? I know you're in support of it. You have anything else you want to comment on this?
We've known the shed is there for a while, and basically it's hidden tastefully behind some foliage, so nice trees and landscaping. So I pull up my driveway, I don't even see it.
Okay.
It's right on my property line.
All right. Any other comments by the members of the board? All right. Any other comments by anyone else from the public? All right. Hearing none, I guess I'll close. I should have. Yeah, I guess I didn't formally open the public hearing, but I'll formally close the public hearing I didn't formally open. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for the Cetrielli application for an accessory structure at 83 Salerno Road. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so this would be a type 2 action, so no environmental review is required. And as I noted earlier in the evening, no 239 review is necessary for this project as well. There are 5 factors to consider when granting an area variance, assuming the town or the members vote in favor. And it's 5 questions we ask. And though the questions may be answered in the negative in any one of these questions, that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean that a variance cannot be granted. And as I always do, I remind members of the board that consistent with state law, we are to grant the minimum variance necessary that may be deemed necessary and adequate to preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood, health, safety, and welfare of the community. So with that, I would like to go through the 5 factors in granting the variance for this particular application. And we can vote either in the affirmative or negative. So whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. I would offer that no, and it sounds like there's actually support from one neighbor, and it seems to be well covered by foliage and also well done from a construction point of view. Any disagreement? Okay. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Again, I would offer no. I'm sorry, whether the benefit can be achieved by some other method, right? And I would offer no, just knowing that area and knowing what's there. Any disagreement from anyone on that one?
Well, I would abstain from that because I don't believe I have sufficient information to reach a conclusion about the slope.
All right, fair enough. Question 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. I just think any variance like this is substantial, unless it's truly de minimis. So my response to this would be yes. Any disagreement? Question 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood or district. And there I would suggest the answer is no, there will be no adverse effect. And finally, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And as with any of these, I would offer, yes, this was a self-created difficulty. Any disagreement? All right, hearing none. So what I'd like to do then is offer that the zoning board of appeals would be granting a variance under what our council has offered as an option 2, which is an accessory structure as defined by the town code, which is enclosed for the storage of one or more motor vehicles, no business, occupation, or service to be conducted for profit therein. And that in doing so, we would grant a, I guess it'd be a side yard variance of 27.4 feet. So kind of a second on that.
And that would be conditioned upon the definition, receipt of the site plan and planning board review.
Yes, thank you. Yep,
Okay.
got you. Yep, may I have a second?
Second.
Sharon.
All right. So we'll do a vote. Myself, aye, in favor. Russ,
Yes.
Mark,
For precedent's sake, I vote no.
okay, fair enough. Chris,
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
All right, so motion passes 4-1. All right. With that, I think that concludes this particular action for the evening. Next steps,
So
Kelly?
what'll happen next is I'll be drafting a written decision for his signature. And then I'll get that to Deborah. Deborah will get you a copy of that, so you have it. You'd need to file an application and Deborah can take you through that with the planning board so that it's now site plan approval under that specific provision, which I will also give to Deborah, and Deborah can send it to you so that you have it and know what we're all talking about tonight.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Yes.
thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, and again, let me play around with my screens.
It's gonna be
All
the
right, so
worst thing. I just keep spinning it around.
yeah, I know, I'm getting dizzy here.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to like let everything see you.
All right, so again, I guess I'll take the liberty of being the chair to modify the agenda. And we'll go to Matsunaga, 26 East Village Road, front porch area variances on section 211, block 14, lot 1.2. Deborah, do we have our mail receipts?
We do.
All right, and my review of all paperwork prior to this evening's meeting appeared everything was order. So now let me do this right. I'll make a motion to open the Takashi Matsunaga East Village Road front porch area variance, section 211, block 14, lot 1.2. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, and let me get to where I can find my public hearing notices. All right, notice of hearing was posted and stated notice is hereby given at the zoning board of appeals of the town of Tuxedo will hold a public hearing at the town hall, Tuxedo, New York, County of Orange, 25th of this month at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible on the application of the owner of record for the property, which is subject of this proceeding, more particularly section 211, block 14, lot 1 in an R2 zoning district located in located at 26 East Village Road, Tuxedo, New York, for area variances from the bulk regulations of the zoning code of the town of Tuxedo to allow for the construction of a front porch and rear deck to an existing single-family home. Copy of the application available for public review in the Tuxedo Building Department. Any person who may be interested may attend the public hearing, and every effort is made to ensure that the hearing is accessible to all peoples. And that was posted on April 10th. For the benefit of the board, I don't think I'm going to tell you anything new here, but I'll do it just for the applicant as well. Obviously, East Village has basically is all non-conforming. So as owners come before this board looking for variances or relief, we tend to address all of the non-conformity such that when the property is formally documented and put up for sale again in the future, we don't have to worry about the non-conformities. They're all documented as being formally accepted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the owners this evening, you will hear probably a lot more than you thought you were going to hear for your front porch. But that's really for the purposes, should this board move forward with your project, that we document all the non-conformity and have that complete and done. So with that, yeah, let me open up a couple things here. East Village. All right, with that, I guess the applicant is in the front row there. So Mr. Masunaga, if you want to kind of explain your project for the board and tell us what you're looking to do, and we'll open it up to public questions and questions from the board.
Basically, what we're doing is taking a porch project where starts from the front of the house, wraps around the house, the edge, the back, which becomes the deck and goes down the stairs to the back of the yard. So it's basically, we already got a blueprint and survey from last drop on the and we're just waiting to get a start this project.
So I guess I just want to make sure, because again, we had a lot here, primarily because this is a non-conforming lot, so we're trying to capture stuff. Really, and I didn't get a chance to go to this location, which I tried to do, but I just haven't been in town. This is just a porch, right? You're not putting any additional living space of any kind?
So the portion is deck and in the back, which yes.
Okay.
Living space.
Right, and the deck is like along the riverbank, right? So it's kind of wrapping around East Village Road and you're bordering the riverbank. Okay. I mean, I guess I don't have a lot of questions. I'm familiar with pretty much anything you do in East Village has to come before us. I've seen many of these, so I guess I'll go right over to Russ. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I visited the property on Sunday and they showed me around there what they want to do, and they just want to increase their living space, correct? You want to increase your living space, your home, to make it more,
No.
which is a deck and then a porch, to make it,
No one living.
well, you want to put the deck on, right, and the porch.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I think the confusion is living space usually
yeah,
means
that's what I meant.
linked with bedrooms.
Yeah, to make it,
No,
No,
so
well,
just a
you're
larger
saying,
porch
yeah.
and deck.
I'm sorry,
How about outdoor living?
yes,
Okay.
no, I don't have any other questions here.
Hey, it's good to see you moving around a lot with that knee replacement though. You're getting around to everybody's houses.
Part of my job.
There you go. All right,
Station right there.
Mark?
Yeah, I see that you're surrounded on three sides. You have a road and then you got the river. So you got one neighbor to the right, so to speak. Did you speak to the neighbor? Did you get their opinion as to? do not, but they've obviously received the appropriate legal notice. They could have been here if they wanted to. So, yeah, I have nothing to say on this proposal. Thank you.
Yeah, then it doesn't look like there's a neighbor on the side of the addition.
Anything else, Chris or Sharon? Sharon?
You said that you sent out a notification to the neighbors? What, to all of East Village?
Within 400 feet.
Within
That's the
400
requirement.
feet.
Which is most of these village.
Right.
Okay. Okay. No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Is there anyone from the public in attendance for this particular project?
Nope.
All right. Hearing none, then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for Matsunaga and the deck addition, section 212, block 9, lot 2. May I have a second? All right, all in favor? All right. All right, again, there is a number of variances required, but again, this is because of the non-conforming nature of the lot to begin with. And it's our attempt to kind of bring these into an official approval state. There is no secret required as the type 2 action for residential structure, and there's no 239 review. So again, as with any area variance, we have the 5-factor test and the question, affirmative or negative decision on any one, particular one of these questions does not necessarily mean that we cannot grant the area variance. But again, as always, I remind the board that the granting of the area variance shall be the minimum variance that is deemed necessary and adequate at the same time to preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and health, safety, welfare of the community. So for the applicant, and I assume that's the applicant's son that's speaking, there's probably a lot more here than what is to be expected, but this happens to everyone who comes in from East Village. So I think I'll start with, we'll do these. Well, let me ask the board, would the board be fine if I just said that I make a motion to accept the project with the variances as defined in the attorney's memo provided to us before the meeting?
Look at number 3.
Right. So I guess number 3, that's the
You separate out number 3, but you did the others. I think I'll like lump the others together and separate the number 3.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have a problem with that, or do you want to go through these individually?
No problem for me.
All right. Yeah, I didn't hear a lot of comments, so I'm assuming this should go. So I'll make a motion that the variances required for Matsunaga's deck construction, in particular, minimum lot area, minimum lot width, minimum setback for both side yards, minimum rear yard, maximum development, and minimum lot depth be accepted, recognizing that these are all primarily nonconformities, existing nonconformities, and this is a formal process to recognize that nonconformity. May I have a second?
That was Chris.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any abstentions or negatives? All right, we'll go now to the minimum required front yard. We have a detached garage, which is in the front yard. This is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, so there's really no variance we can grant here. And then we have the proposed porch that's facing towards the east property line, and that would be the, I guess, kind of looking at the river, I believe would be the east one. Town Code 9813G provides an unenclosed and roofed porch may extend into a required front yard, provided it projects no more than 8 feet in width and 6 feet in depth. We don't have measurements for the porch, as referred to, and so we really need to have the measurements in order to consider any variance to be required.
Oh,
I don't
so
know,
did just
if-
receive the construction drawing.
right?
Don't
Okay,
know if You can see that. So this is the front of the house. Looking that way, and here's the river back here.
got you.
So the new entry porch is 8 feet by 7 feet, 8 inches for just this. And then it extends over an additional 10 feet, 3 3/4 inches over this way to get it to the end of the house. So the total is 8 feet out from the house and 17. Almost 18 feet wide.
So the 8 feet piece is fine, or no, it's 8 feet in width, so we're looking for a 2-foot variance on width, or no, depth, and then we're looking at, sounds like about 10-foot variance on the width.
Yes.
All right, and have all the members of the board had opportunity to review that?
This is bigger than 8 feet in the front. So you have the new entry portion, and it looks like there's a stair going.
Well, is that included in this?
Right? This is-
I don't know if that's included in the calculation.
I'm not sure. These are the stairs.
Would the stairs be included as porch? I'm not sure that the stairs would be included, but consider them included for tonight, just so everything's covered. Because normally the building inspector would weigh in as to whether or not that's part, or whether it just stopped at the 8 feet. Okay, so
Was that initial landing there? No, it says new. Okay, I see new entry porch. Got it. Yep,
and then he's talking about this
right. Yep.
stairs
Yep.
down.
So then you have a depth of what,
15.
15, okay.
I'm using your math. Who's math? I'm using your math.
It's about 14.
It's all right, it doesn't have to be perfect.
14 feet, 10.5.
14 feet, 10.5 inches.
All right, so then we're looking for a depth of 8 feet and a width of 10 feet for variance, right? To get to 15, and it's actually 9, you said 15, so 6, that'd be 9 feet by 10.
Yes. Make it 11 because it's got.
All right.
inches.
Yep, got you. Yeah, you can, okay. And everyone on the board's had a chance to review this?
They're all nodding.
All right, no questions on, and remember about this?
So the other part is. This is also along the other part of East River that circles around. So this to there is, okay, awesome, 10 feet. Got this one?
Mhm.
Okay.
36 plus 6.
All right, he says it's 10 feet.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with his math because lawyers and math late at night doesn't work.
All right. But that's an existing side yard non-conformity, right?
Well, it's a front yard because the front yard goes like this. So this could come out the depth, but it's longer than the 8 feet that's required.
Because it's all road frontage.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so so we really have,
You got a variance
So-
of all of this and this. and then a variance of like this.
Yeah, but it's all the front yard, so it's gonna be the largest, it should be the largest variance required for whatever's on the front. I mean, we can't break the front yard into 4 sections, right? Or 3
Right, I
sections.
would refer to the map, that way, all of a sudden, this doesn't end out over here.
Yeah, but I do wanna know at least what we're talking about for footage and limit any construction to the details as provided in the application.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess because I can't see the measurements clearly, we're looking at I can't read the numbers. I mean, I see the picture, but I can't read the
And I'm
numbers,
probably
so.
shaking, my arm's getting tired. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just the numbers come up blurry.
Do you want me to scan it to you, Frank?
I got like a couple screens open right now. I just need to know whether Chris or Mark or Russ or Sharon, what's the maximum variance we need? I just need the depth and width.
He says
50 is about 31.8.
31.8.
Be the barrier. Be the 50 on the floor.
Maximum number.
We need straight to the front yard, and what I can tell on this drawing, the closest it is 18 floor. And that would be on that corner off the house.
So 31.8 and 18.4 is how close it gets to the corner of the house along the curve of East Village.
31.8 is the, it's going to be hard to call it depth or width, right?
Well, we'll put the depth and the width, but what they're saying is reducing the front yard setback. However, that's the setback, but then the variances would also have to be from the 8 and 6.
All right, so again, not having the document in front of me, what's the variance in terms of footage?
So here's a suggestion, not sure if you're gonna go for it. If you want, I can, while you start on the next application, I can actually figure out the numbers and get you the actual numbers. Do you not want that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go through the 5-factor test because I have to do that, right?
Yes.
We didn't do that. And then we can maybe have the numbers while I go through that. And because I'd rather just kind of wrap it up and not go back and forth. All right, so what I'll do while we're waiting here for the other variances, I'll go through the 5-factor test and whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of an area variance. I think the answer on this is no. No disagreement. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. I think here the answer is no as well. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, and I guess I typically just say yes, these are substantial, and it sounds like this will be, though I will note that we are also addressing a number of nonconformities this evening as well. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood or district. I think the answer there is no. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variances. And yes, this is self-created in the fact that they're adding these additions here. All right, so we had approved or agreed with items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as provided by council. I guess we'll just, what I'd like to get is the specifics on the footage required for item 3, and that will be conditioned also on the construction being consistent and equal to that provided in the application. Any other conditions anyone needs to be concerned about while we're waiting for some numbers? Okay.
Yes.
Give me 1 second.
So there is.
This.
Yeah.
I like.
Nope, that's close enough. It's not this, not quite this scale, but. See, lawyers, math, late at night. So,
Hey, Frank, if I may, can I take this opportunity to introduce our new building inspector? Chris Watson, he came in to meet the board.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, Chris, sorry I can't be there to see you, meet you in person.
Oh, quite all right. How's it going?
Very good. Welcome to the town of Tuxedo.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't want
What's
to.
what's the background?
I've been doing inspections for the past 15 years. I've been with Busco for about 5. Before that, I was working with advanced testing. Doing a lot of commercial inspections.
Excellent, excellent.
I got my code enforcing certification 2 years ago. So I've been doing, I'm pretty fluent with a lot of inspections.
And you hit the
All
ground.
right,
Code top to bottom, but I'm pretty good with it.
excellent. Well, welcome on board.
Okay, so the variances, and I will separate them by the eastern side of the property, which is parallel to the river, and then the northeastern, which is the curve. So for the front yard setback from the eastern, it would be a variance of 28.3 feet, resulting in a variance of 28.3 feet. From the northeastern, it's a variance of 31.6 feet. And then for the deck porch construction, on the east, it would be a variance of 11 feet, 11 3/4 inches in width, 8 feet, 10.5 inches in depth. And then on the northeastern, it spans the whole length of that building, of that side. So on the northeast, it would be a variance of 2 feet for depth and a variance of 36 feet for width.
All right. So without repeating all of that, I assume all the board members heard the specifics for the variances. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
All right, so what I'd like to propose then is that we provide the front yard setbacks as defined by council, with the stipulation that the project be constructed consistent with the construction plans provided in the application. In the formal decision, the footage as measured by Kelly will be identified, so we'll have specifics in the formal decision. So may I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
All right. So I think that covers us on Matsunaga.
Let me just make sure. Yes, so back up. Okay, so same as the last application, I'll be putting together a formal decision that the chairman will sign. Then it will go to Deborah. Deborah will get you a copy of it. And you'll need to get your building permits and everything else. I just point to Deborah. Call Deborah. She's got it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. I will tell you, this is like really clunky doing this way, but hopefully we don't do this too often. All right, we've now have our main event for the evening here. We have Skyview Skylights, 655 Sterling Mine Road, alternate plan area variances, section 217, block 1, lot 16.2. We had the public hearing that was opened in February and continued to this evening. So I'd like to make a motion to open this evening's public hearing. May I have a second? All in favor? Aye. We had a couple items that were incomplete with the last application. One being the mailing and the receipts. Deborah, do we have those?
You do.
Was that a yes? I'm sorry.
Yes, Frank, we do.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Yep, no problem. And the 239 review basically, once again, refers it back as a local decision. So we don't have any significant comments from the county. The planning board has issued their negative declaration on the project. And so, and as we all know, as we saw last month, there was a number of changes that were put forth on the project, basically reduction in the size of the project and some other changes in the footprint and lot coverage. So with that, I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over to council. And Dan, I guess the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A virtual good night to you. Members, Deb, Ellie, Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Supervisor, and the new building inspector. Hopefully we'll be working with you in the future. The chairman is correct in pointing out the two missing items from the February meeting, the mailings, which have in fact been addressed. This project has been greatly reduced from its original derivation, both in terms of the size of the building and pulling the building away from the neighbors to minimize any impacts with regard to their view. 5 of the variants that we're seeking have already been granted under the original application. And if anyone disagrees with me, disagree with me. What remains are 2 new variants. One had to do with developmental coverage, and the other is obviously the height. My recollection from the last meeting is that the building inspector weighed in with regard to the former building definition. Weighed in on developmental coverage, acknowledged that because we were going to be using a very high-tech product known as grass paved 2, that it was to be deemed to be a pervious surface, which would not count towards the calculation of the developmental coverage area, further reducing the developmental coverage that we were seeking under the initial variation of this application. Second thing with regard to the height variance, I think the board wanted more detail as to why we needed it. I'd like to point out a couple of things, practical things, and then turn it over to my client and our engineer to deal with the technical aspects of this. The average home, particularly a colonial, is 30 feet in height. The limit on this building in this zone for commercial uses is limited to 30 feet in height. When you look at the average colonial house, even though the roof height may be 30 feet, most houses have ceilings, they have attics that are not usable for anything other than potentially storage, reducing the actual usable area to approximately 20 feet. And I went through my house and I did the measurements before I came here. And that's exactly what I came out with in my house. Here, when you're talking about commercial buildings throughout the country, 30 feet is not the norm for a commercial building. And the town went through, well, first off, the prior code had all commercial uses. The new code had virtually all commercial uses. The comprehensive plan never spoke about height being a concern. It was just changed without any, I would argue, compliance with the comprehensive plan. We have a lot more detail that we have prepared for you. A lot of it is visual, so that we can show you the present operation and the need for why we need 45 feet. Right now, as everyone knows, there's an existing building on site that over the years, people have come in and walked away from, and we all know the result of that. And look of that building, how much closer it is to Sterling Mine Road. And Kelly pointed out, at a prior meeting that because we're proposing to tear down that building, that we will lose what's called vested rights. That existing building has 42.5 feet in height. Any of those other people could have finished the building, even with the new code, as long as they didn't change, go beyond the 42.5 feet. Finished up the inside of the building, because that's really all that needs to be done. And the town would have a 42.5 foot building. So I'd like you to consider, I know I've mentioned it before, but don't just look at what the code is with the 30 feet. I'm begging you. I really think that it's a legitimate argument that if someone were to apply for a building permit for that existing structure, they would get 42.5 feet. So the actual, in my mind, and I'm being completely sincere in taking this position, I'm not just saying it for my clients. I think that it is perfectly reasonable, if not logical, to look at this as, okay, we're getting rid of that ugly 42.5 foot high building. And the applicant is proposing to replace it with a beautiful new building with all sorts of landscaping, lighting that won't shine on to the neighbor's property, tax ratables, jobs, someone who over the years has demonstrated his commitment to becoming part of the community where he works. Right now, he's a stranger. I can promise you that if this is approved and it is constructed, he will become virtually a resident of the town of Tuxedo, just like the other two applicants that were before you tonight. The fact is, in my opinion, I shouldn't say that. In my opinion, once again, if the building's torn down, we would lose vested rights. Me agreeing with Ms. Norton. However, if the building's not torn down, it retains its vested rights. And it's allowed to be completed, not expanded. That would require further variances. But it could be completed as is with just internal renovations, additions, walls, etc. So once again, please think the 2.5 feet, not 30 feet from 45 feet. Now, with regard to the need that I believe was of concern to this board when we last appeared, I'm going to turn it over to Norman, and then we're going to turn to, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, and then we'll turn it over to the engineer to talk about the technical aspects. We've gone so far as to contact OSHA, and they've indicated that there are certain elements that have to be added to this building that will reduce just like the attic
in a single family house will actually reduce the usable height internally. And I also want to point out that even though at the highest point, it's 45 feet, it slopes. And that slope benefits neighbors such as Mr. Gallagher. And the appearance from Mr. Gallagher's property will make it look visually 13, that the height is actually 13 feet. It's so far set back. It is so screened and will be screened to Mr. Gallagher's.
That, you know, that's not my last name, right?
Carpenter, yes, I
Thank you.
know, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Just-
I was too busy writing to.
It does sound great. You guys.
I wish you would have interrupted me earlier.
Well, there you go.
It's let me bury myself. Thanks.
That amount.
My client has sat down. I'm not going to speak for either of them. But my client has sat down with the neighbor.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin.
Kevin, even better.
Right.
And has made it, I wasn't there, but I think has made it clear to him, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to not have this building have the impact that you're concerned about right now. And that can either be addressed before the planning board. If I can be so bold as to say, you can make that recommendation to the planning board, it will be done. We will make Kevin happy. Promise. I know last time we spoke, that you have trouble believing people. My goal and my client's goal is to try to get you to actually see that there are trustworthy people who stand by their word. I promise you, to whatever degree I can make sure that that happens, I will do it. And I know my client will do it. So with that, unless you have any questions right now for me, I'd like to turn it over to Norman to give a presentation with regard to what I think you were asking for in greater detail the last time we met. Thank you.
I have a question. I kind of got this cryptic feeling here, like there was an agreement, and I'm not sure what that, when you were saying, you know, that the conversation, that there was a feeling that something was said that would make the neighbor feel better about it, and that, you know, you would be, you're sure that would happen. I'm not clear what that means exactly.
I don't think I worded it that way. I was trying to make it very clear. A, I wasn't there.
Okay.
B, you can have a conversation with someone and you could walk away thinking one thing, and the person that you're speaking to can think the complete opposite.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
What was sort of agreed upon? So
Well,
that
we
I-
discussed, hi Frank, Kevin Coppinger. What we discussed was, Frank had brought up at the last meeting about, I believe it was like a 12-foot buffer zone or something to that effect.
That's what I think I saw.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers. But Norman contacted me through the building department and all, and Norman and I met last week. And I went to his place of business and we were discussing the possibility of there being a 25-foot permanent buffer zone between my property line and the edge of where he would end up putting on, I believe this is correct, 2 lines of these pine, evergreen trees that they were talking about. There'd be 2 rows with them being staggered in between each other as to help alleviate the reflective light coming off of that property. And it will be maintained up on that existing rise in the property as it is, correct, Norman?
Yeah.
So that was what we had discussed. We discussed a little bit about the lighting, about possibly having some type of motion lighting going on. I believe, I'm trying to remember the terminology we use at work. I'm an electrician. I've been in construction for 30 years. I've worked all aspects of it. Sometimes there's a daylight harvesting light, I believe that they're referring to nowadays, that we do in malls and parking garages. Be something similar to that to alleviate light refraction. And Kelly had mentioned that there'd be 0.7,
0.1 foot candles. at the
0.1 foot
property.
candle from the property line that would be allowed at night anyway.
That's usually what the planning board
That's-
limits it to. I don't recall what it was on the lighting plan. If one was submitted, usually there's sometimes a little bit greater foot candles at an opening, so that if
Right.
somebody was turning in, they don't hit something, but the planning board has a standard condition where they require or permit no more than 0.1 foot candles at a property line.
We discussed also lighting wall packs that they wouldn't be,
They have to be downward shielded,
Right.
night sky friendly.
because the comparison I made, if you ever drove down Sterling Mine Road in Sloatsburg, where they had that awning place on the right-hand side going towards, you could see that place is like a football stadium at night. I mean, just driving your car there, you don't even need your headlights on for, 1,000 feet. And this is all the stuff that I bring up. If it does get passed, these are the things that I'm trying to avoid. We've lived there for that property's been there in my wife's name forever. And that building, you keep bringing up the building, the height of that building, the whole 9 yards. That building should have never been built. Back then, the town or whoever allowed the merger of two properties. One was wetlands. And how the DEC of the county ever allowed that to begin with. And then the guy comes back and he backfills on the wetlands where the building is now. So technically, that property should have never gotten as far as it did. And that's what I mean about being lied to. We sat in this very room in 2003, 2004, and we got smoke blowing up our snots. And I'm not going through that again. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm sorry, but
I promise you won't.
No, this is why I'm staying firm in what I see and what I don't want to see happen. There's a lot of restrictions on the hours, things like that, which I agree with. There's gonna be a lot of issues coming up with construction, parking for construction workers are sloppy. Stuff blowing all over the place. How's he gonna control that? It's not under his control, it's under the general contractor's control. But there's issues here that, that I feel that I've had.
Well, I think that some of those are good to be bringing up in front of the planning,
Well,
in front of the planning board.
Yeah.
That way they would be appropriate conditions to tie to a.
and I realize that, maybe everything I'm saying doesn't fly here and I apologize. It's not part of your board, but it's just things that I'm gonna bring up as I go along. And if the planning board ever sends me a notice saying, hey, we're doing a public hearing, then John's gonna hear what I have to say.
Well, I do think, John's on the call, so that's good.
Okay.
So he should be hearing this. And obviously Kelly is
Right there.
the attorney for both boards. So, so while some of these might be issues not under our purview, I do know at least the planning board chairman and planning board attorney is present. So that's good.
I did visit Norman's site, and in comparison to what Ken English wrote in his report, there is noise coming from there, and naturally they're welding, they're grinding, things like that. And me and Norm had to go outside to talk because the guys were busy working, and that's what happens when you do fabrication. Now, whether or not on that particular day, his doors were open. When this new building is gonna be constructed, are all the doors gonna stay closed while he's manufacturing? Because he's gonna have a newer facility with better airflow, things like that. How's that? These are things that I saw. He does powder coating. What's the environmental impact on powder coating? I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it's something about baking on paint somehow. We all have wells. And if you lose a well, then you try to sue somebody over that one. In the interim, you're out of water for whatever time frame. And
The object is.
the county didn't find anything wrong. They had a no negative report from what I saw here.
I don't know what the application said when it went to the county. And I'm not
They
taking
get
anything
the-
against Norm. I'm not personal against Norm. Yeah, that's his livelihood, but this is where I live. This is,
Just so you know, what went to the county, what for this board was sent by Deborah, it was the application that was provided. So everything
we
that
have-
this board has
okay.
seen, the county saw. And the same thing when it goes on behalf of the planning board, they get the documents that went to the planning board, go to the planning department, and Deborah sends it. So they get everything that we get.
yeah, so, I mean, if you guys can continue and then come back later, Frank, I got a couple other things I want to address.
Yep. That sounds good.
Get here and get all crazy.
Does
No-
Mr.
no problem.
Mr. Gallagher left the room.
You didn't bring Lenny with you today.
I have
All right.
a question for the applicant's attorney before the presentation by the engineer and the applicant himself. And it goes to, and please Kelly, correct me or stop me if this is inappropriate. I had a chance to review your Article 78 petition, and I would like you to explain one particular point that you make continuously throughout the petition, specifically paragraphs 14, 15, and 16. You repeat at least 3 or 4 times that in making its initial determination from which you appealed through the Article 78, that this board engaged in no deliberation. And you repeat that several times. I'd just like to get at least an opinion from you as to your view of what appropriate deliberation is for a board such as this.
I've once again been representing planning and zoning boards for 34 years. It's very rare, very, very rare that I represent private applicants. So I sit in Kelly's seat. And I constantly tell the board members, when you are rendering your decision on a zoning board application, go out of your way to explain why you're voting the way you're voting. I could be wrong, but I didn't get that. I didn't come away with that during that first application. But I also want to make it clear that I went out of my way to bring what's called a bare bones Article 78. I didn't get into, I mean, obviously you don't feel that way, but I try to avoid bringing up controversial issues, what I'll call my best arguments.
If I could just interject for a minute, for the litigation, he just did that to protect his rights. It was his position that he didn't think you had enough discussion about the application. And it is my position representing this board that there was a lot of discussion. You had a thoroughly detailed written decision. So these things would be, if that matter were to proceed, I think it's very clear to Dan that I would move to dismiss because I support what the board did, and then it would be in the court's hands. But that element is, I think, behind, but if there comes a point where I don't think you're having enough deliberation, and part of the deliberation is really not just, here's the 5-part, sorry, Frank, I keep bouncing. So here's the 5-part test, let's talk about that one element. It's also the questions and the answers and the back and forth that the board has with the applicant, because all of those answers are going into your thought process as to how you are concluding, So I consider that the deliberations, all of the discussion, not just, here's the question, what's your answer? My answer is yes. That's not all of it. And that's something that obviously we would fight out, but we don't need to right now. So if there comes a time where I don't think there is enough discussion, as Frank has seen before, I would just interject and ask a question to pull a little bit more out so that it's clear, but I don't think you have to worry about that.
I appreciate your definition, but I just want to make sure that the applicant doesn't think that as part of deliberations, as would be traditional in, say, a jury in court, would exclude
Actually, quasi judicial.
a jury in a court would be sequestered in a private room and have deliberations. And those deliberations would not be appropriate in an open meeting such as the zoning board of appeals. We don't have private discussions. It's not permitted. So deliberations, as some members of the public might understand, and certainly as an attorney, you would understand, are not jury deliberations in secret, but are in fact discussions among the members, with the public, with each other, with the applicant, with the applicant's attorney, and that qualifies for the purpose of a zoning board, even in a quasi judicial capacity, as Kelly says, are in fact deliberations.
Mr. Citron. I'm not arguing with you. I just want to explain like why I did what I did. I read through the minutes.
But
I used
but
the
just
minutes.
don't want to
Yeah,
talk.
Kelly, yeah,
So
I
now
think
we
we,
just- And that the minutes by law are only actually required to have the motions, so they are not required to hold the deliberations. He made his arguments, we would make ours. Let's focus on the application at hand.
Thank you.
Sorry, Frank.
yeah, no, I was gonna say, I probably not in the best interest to talk about potential lawsuits anyway, so we should try to move forward. We've heard Mark's point, we've heard Dan's point. We can move forward. Any other questions before we go to the next part of the presentation? If not, floor's back to the applicant.
My name is. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to hear tonight. My name is Norman Deutsch. I'm representing 655 Sterling Mine Road. Casino, as you know, this has been going on close to 4 years. 655 Sterling Mine property is about 4.75 per acre. Thanks.
Sorry, it's just my speakers are low, so.
Initially, we initially requested to put a small building, about 64,000 square feet. In addition, the other variances, which was part of it, was not approved. The size of the building is one of them. Sadly, was forced to reduce the building by 20,000 square feet. In addition, the zoning, the zoning for the height was also changed about a year later after purchasing the property. Prior to purchasing the property, I made a due diligent investigation on the property, and according to that point, with the zoning, meeting the inspector, all of them have agreed that I'm in accordance with the law, and it fits the idea that we want to build over there. The building currently over there is 42.5 inches, 42 feet, 0.5 inches. So I went ahead, and on that basis, I made the purchase. Had I known that a year after that, the zoning would be changed drastically, I would never make the investment. I felt like the carpet was put under my feet. I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle, but unfortunately, I'm here. I hope we can make it work. My initial thought of the building project was never to build a full building at one time. We were thinking to build a small building over there and add on as the years to come, whatever we need, we'll add on. But now we're up to it. The critical point is, we can still do it, but the critical point is the 45 feet, the request of 45 feet. The 45 feet is critical due to many reasons. First, since the building was reduced in 20,000 square feet, we have to think, whatever was thinking to, carry into preserve and, vertical, vertical, we have to put in horizontal. So, and we have to figure out a new way how to, keep our, raw product and, semi-construction of, window, which is, we're going lengths about 30 to 40 feet in length, as you can see. They're very large in length. You can see over here, these are truck that just delivered this morning, took a picture just this morning. I think that's a 30 feet length. The building that we're currently right now is, doesn't have the capacity to keep anything upright. So it's very difficult to stay in there and to keep it upright. As a 45-feet building, we may end up having, the capacity to keep, storage this way. So that is one of the parts that's very important. Sometimes we do have the windows that, exceed up to 50 feet, but in a large home building, we're able to keep it inside over there. Also more than that, we get to this in a minute. According to the engineers, the height of the building is also will be covering the facade, will be starting at 45 feet. And the main warehouse will be covered from the facade, will obstruct the facade, will obstruct the back building, and that way we're gonna hide it from the labor to have a nice look in the front. So the reason why we need a 45-feet building, but the end of the use of 45 feet building will then 24 feet to end up usable. The reason the breakdown is because in the average building, the beams, the metal structure beams are approximately 5 feet. Then I'm gonna add on the fans. We plan to have fans to blow down the heat into for ventilation, for cooling. So this is the fan that we plan to purchase is another 5 feet. It's another 5 feet, 58.8 is about another 5 feet, 60 inches. So together we are close to 11 feet now, just the beam and the fan. After that, the company who sells these things in OSHA requires to have at least a minimum of 10 feet below, minimum of 10 feet of clearance for the airfoil for safety. Therefore, I'm saying, this is that you see over here. What they said over here, for 10 feet, at least minimum 10 feet. I took it out of the specs. This is the spec that they have, the company, so, all of the companies that sell these things, they're required to have 10 feet underneath finishing point. So, once again, OSHA requirements and, over there, points out that there's a National Fire Protection Association compliance element with regard to this 10 feet. Bring that over to this, yeah.
It's from. That's the manufacturer. Yes.
Commercial fence.
Yeah.
More of a individual spec. They told me it's required by OSHA. It's them and OSHA do the same thing, that's why they told me I spoke to them. 10 feet off the floor, 2 foot where it's from. Yeah, but we're gonna have the main beams and we'll see.
Has any of the structural engineering been done? For the, for what you guys do? Because the photos you're showing are all barge.
Right.
Do you know what the spacing on barge joist is?
I don't have the details, but here's what I did. I went to Home Depot, and that's a common structure. Home Depot is a common structure. So we will copy approximately what they're doing. So we just, this is not,
So, yeah, well, I mean, so the point that I was trying to make with the barge joist, you guys are citing sprinklers and fans. Depending on the spacing,
fans would be recessed in between bar joists. And certainly, conduit lighting, sprinkler systems would be also recessed. Above that bottom of the bar joist, the piping would be running through the middle, it wouldn't be below it.
It will be similar like this. The reason for that is we're talking 24 feet.
What's 20 feet?
The fans are 24 feet. Okay, 24 feet in diameter. You can't put them in between.
That's a big ass fan.
I do that.
Yeah.
By the way, it doesn't name the company.
I can see that from the boards.
You can't put them in.
This question was about.
24 feet.
So why can't you make a little platform to hold it down 2 feet below the bottom of the joist?
Yeah.
2 feet below the, okay.
It's just, it's
Okay, so instead of 10 foot, you get 8.
We have over here 5,
Yeah.
and this will be hanging right on top
No,
of that.
that would be separate, doesn't hang down.
2 feet coming down. Let me go back.
So again, so you'd be 7 feet from the top. of it.
And you'll have your 2 feet. So you don't need, so you can mount it to the ceiling.
It comes down, this is 2 feet. This is right here. 2 feet. This is
How
2
far
feet.
down to the blades from the top piece to the blades?
Now, running, it's 30 inches, from the motor to the blade, it's 30 inches.
What's
I mean, I guess the other question I have really is,
It's counted.
correct.
So it's 50.
That might be the biggest fan that we can find, but is there an alternate fan that would,
All of the companies we pretty much about this kind of thing, like
we're 24 feet though?
they have everything about, the height of the height, for the distance from the bottom, 10 foot, the 10 feet, finishing, all required 10 feet.
From the bottom.
From the bottom.
Which you would have, I mean, you need to be more than 10 feet from the post. Right, 10 feet is as low as it can go. Right, so I guess the question I'm asking with the bar joists and spacing and everything is what is the design of the structure? What are the size of the bar joists? What is?
Seems to have 24 feet inside.
No, I understand that. But, you know, if perhaps instead of 2 24-foot fans, you had 3 whatever size fans, so that may be able to fit within the spacing. That's why I was curious with that, and also obviously the depth of the bar joist matters, right, because that's going to be kind of the low point of the ceiling. So that's why I was asking if any engineering has been done to know exactly what you would be getting, whether it's a 30-foot or 45-foot, you know, what that spacing is going.
So I've spoken to many others which they have done something similar like that, and they told me that all the small fans are not gonna work, they're not gonna produce, especially these buildings which are going to use everything electric. They have no heat for the getting gas, which electric is very expensive, doesn't give up as much as gas, so we're gonna have to use the best fans out there to do the heating and cooling that place, otherwise it's not going to work. We're gonna take cheap little fans, it's not gonna do the job. Take a room for that.
And also, don't forget, we're all trying to be more green. This uses a lot less power. And more permitted. What ends are being used all over the place right now to generate. I don't buy that they in.
That's not the point.
So even before we wanted to start using their space, we are losing close to 29 feet.
We're losing 29.
Yeah. Take the 5 feet from the top.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm trying to figure out the size of bar joist.
Yeah,
Right, I mean, 5-foot bar joist, pretty big bar. Is it
That's-
3-foot bar joist, right? 3 foot and 2 foot, you're losing 5.
that's an average is using it, Home Depot is using them, Walmart is using them, all these commercial buildings are using that.
I mean, that's not.
Because we wanna have open space, we don't wanna put columns everywhere.
I understand. I'm saying is engineering, right? It's such a thought. Walmart has 5-foot bar joists. We're gonna have 5-foot bar joists. It has nothing to do, as you know, with the span of the structure, the load that it's carrying, and all of that. It's not just, oh, they got 5-foot bar joists, we'll use 5. That's not how engineering's done, and I know that you know that.
Yeah, everything is site specific, of course, but it's a proof that, metal structure, the engineering for that would really be done by the manufacturer. You know, the local structural engineer would be the building foundation.
but in terms of the required elements for the structure to support the roof, the manufacturer does do that, and quite frankly, we're not at a point to engage. Are you more civil engineering than structural? Oh, this is civil structure. Okay, civil engineering. I just wasn't sure if any of this had been done, because I mean, obviously, it's very pertinent to the ceiling height, to the height of the structure. I wasn't sure if any of this, the load calculation, size of barge, or spacing of barge, or depth of barge, any of that had been done, right? Because it's extremely pertinent to what you're asking. If we would put columns and beams all around it, then we can go shorter, but as we manufacture large stuff, we want to have as open spot. I fully understand. Have any of those calculations? It sounds good. Not this. So I'm not saying that columns or anything like that, I'm not saying that at all, I'm just saying, has the math been done? Right, to determine the size of the barge joists that you're going to be, what's the spacing going to be, what's the depth going to be? The tighter they are together, the narrower they need to be, or the part they are. Right, so that's all something for an engineer to calculate, and that is very relevant to what you're asking for. And that's why I'm asking. So what I'm trying to, even you make them shorter with 2 feet, you're gonna still have a significant amount of loss of height of use, because you have 4 foot of loss. Yeah, well, the fan. Well, I'm saying, fan said needs 2 foot of clearance from the bottom of the barge joist. So if you're 2 feet beneath the bottom of the barge joist. And then they have 26 from here to here, it's a total of 58.8 inches. And that's 59, 60. But that's from the roof deck, not from the bottom of the barge.
Yeah.
So the 20, 30, what is the top one? I just can't see. The top space in the
4.9 feet.
4.9 feet from the roof.
Yeah.
Not from the bottom of the barge.
Right.
These aren't going to fasten to the bottom of the barge. Yeah, they're going to fasten to the bottom of the barges. No, they'll be fastened to the roof. You don't have to spec 24 feet inside of rotation. No. There's a rod that's gonna hold the thing, right? Right. That would be fastened to the roof. That will come down. You'll have your spacing from the roof deck on the top. Then you just need to clear the bottom of the barge by that lower. You're not losing all of that. You're losing the bottom from the bottom of the barge. Yes. Not necessarily, but we can argue on that. But, and we're gonna lose 8-9 feet. I disagree that. There's also the aspect of horizontal versus vertical for the product. They go hand in hand. Most people, the product won't be able to be stored internally vertically. If we have this, why would it? I mean, because when I'm looking at the photos provided in the report, hold up, I'm looking at what's maybe a 15-foot ceiling currently. Where us right now? Yeah. No, it's 30. That's not 30.
No, it's not film.
It's 30 feet?
Yeah.
I mean, I see a guy standing here, I'm looking at this door, it's maybe a 14-foot door. 14-foot door.
I don't know the exact height, but it's 300.
Yeah, it's like,
My other two experience.
Okay.
I like it how much you can away. I like to see the guys, like, you get into your training, but that.
not go piece by piece, so not.
I'm like it.
Actually, I was thinking the same thing as you, but I just pulled up, here we go, Frank. I just pulled it up online for the fan company and it doesn't show it attached to the ceiling. It actually shows it attached to the bar joist,
Correct.
which was not what I was thinking at all because I thought it would hang from the.
Platform.
Yeah.
Well,
So I get mounted right to the truss. Let's call it the truss.
No, I told the engineer and they told me that because of the shaking of it, needs to be fastened to a rigid one. And it has to be struck because that's why that's what we of the shaking of it. So he's taking full time. The reason why he's moving is because the present facility
to support, what the expansion of his, business. And, we're not allowed to have anything outside. He saw there was stuff outside. We had no choice. We don't want that. We want everything in, first of all, we're required to. But for a cleanliness and a appearance standpoint, it's imperative that this site be clean, not impact the neighbors. It's gonna cost a hell of a lot more to do what he's proposing to do. Not that that matters to you, but he's willing to do it. The main point is he's moving because the present site has problems that I'm concerned, listening to some of the things that you're saying, it's just gonna be forced to repeat and not solve.
Well, I mean, we're substantially increasing. footprint, right, from what is present. I'm just discussing the height concern.
Right. He's 30 feet. That is present location. And
Yeah, so what I'd offer is, I think the information, obviously, a critical factor in this application has been the height of the building. But we might be getting into means and methods, which are the applicant's decision. There's probably multiple means and methods. And we should be concerned with whether the variance fits his means and methods, and not maybe providing alternative means and methods, which could have other legal implications down the road. So I think there's good questions. I think it's important. We all have stated we really need to understand the height issue. But we might be getting a little bit further along into areas that, are best left to, there's probably multiple ways to do it, and it's up to the applicant to pick the right way, and it's up for the board to decide if the variance is worthy of his means and methods to do that.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman, about one of the exhibits displayed?
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, no, I don't want to stop asking questions. I kind of want to get some other items out there. That's really what I'm getting at. But yeah, please.
Would you put up the truck, please? The truck. I believe you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Deutsch, that photo was taken this morning.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, the sunrise is pretty early, and to me, it looks like it's dawn when that photo was taken. So it begs my question, what are your operating hours and what will they be? Because obviously somebody was there very early to take that photograph.
So the operator took that home last night,
Right.
and he went to 3 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, he was out, from his home to go to.
Oh, so that was not taken at your facility?
That was, we don't keep trucks.
Oh, okay, I appreciate that. So that was not in Hilbert.
That's not.
Okay.
It's a local office.
All right, thank you very much. Now I understand. All right, I just wanted to make sure that you're not operating at dawn, right?
No, he took it home at home, and then he went straight from there to.
Right.
To the mounting reference guide, you can mount on I-beams, bar joists, Z-purlins, solid beams, or I-beams. So you don't need a big truss like that to mount it on.
So, we're going to have an incline as well, so we can't get away from it, the building is a flat roof, we're going to have an incline approximately of 8 feet we calculated. So we came to the number, you're losing approximately 29 feet. We can argue on that it's not, it's 25, 24, you're losing a lot of footage for all of that. So we're starting with a building of 45 feet high, which will be on the outside on the peak, which will cover the back building. It's going to only improve the enhancement of the look of the building. I think there's also a good reason. let's go the opposite way around.
Which would give him less height at this structure and at an existing structure.
Correct. If we go around, if you give me only 30 feet high and we take away 30 feet high, which will which is usually 30 feet high, usually a height of residential neighborhood. It's not commercial. But if you go that way, we end up having a ceiling of 9 feet. Working on the high point and in the low point, we have approximately 1 feet. It's nothing, it's disintegrating. It's a joke for a commercial building, especially when you build something as big as this on a daily basis. It's a joke, it's impossible to use it. You guys are making fun, and making fun of us that we're getting we're taking a truck and parking our car garage. It doesn't work, it's commercial. There's been multiple professionals hired by us in designing this project, and none of them stated that it will be a significant impact. What we are doing is the height is the most critical, especially since the height cannot add later. Like I said before, we wanted to do the building and multiple structures. So starting with a small building, see how much we need, and then we're going to add on. But we have to start with the height. We can't have the height, we can't add it later. Or whatever we have the height right now, that's what we have. So it's crucial to start with the height. These together the height. We're planning to use this heating fan, electric fan over here. So we plan to use multiple of these fans here, airflow curtain to blow down the heat. And we're planning to use heaters, something like this, with made out of electric, not gas, because there's no gas on the premise. This is a gas when we put it in a current place, but we use something like this exactly available with gas with electric. So this is what we're planning to do. So it's very crucial to have that height.
And we're trying to keep it internally so that it doesn't impact the neighbor's view of these, big, facilities on roof.
Mechanicals. Sorry, that was the word I think you were looking for, the mechanicals.
Thank you. Yeah. The way will be use electric commercial heaters and combined with large fans to blow back down the heat. The summer use of ventilation. I believe it would be in the best interest of town to see those to host Skyview as an occupied business, as accommodating their needs that will be proven to preventing corporate and non-for-profit are coming to this premise. Granting Skyview the required needs. This will give the best security for the town to see those to preserve the peaceful environment. Because Skyview is a privately owned light fabricator. This means that we would stay within the division of the town of Tuxedo. We have the benefit of limited traffic, contributing to taxes, creating employment, supplying the local within the neighborhood. I don't think you can ask for a better neighbor in that particular property, which is so limited, and any no gas and no electric, no gas and no sewer. It's a very challenging property. I don't think so we have it by being there. It's going to benefit both of us. I'm desperate. I feel I need to speak to you guys. I'm crossroad. Either I'm granted the variances at the height, or be forced to abandon this ongoing project. I gave up 20,000 square feet. Only asking the 2 feet higher, 2 feet higher, 5 inches, which existing buildings right now. I can't afford to give up anything more.
We've done everything we could to hear you, to respond to you, to react to you. This is the one thing we can't do anything about.
we're losing so much square feet on the bottom, so we have to compact it, at least in the height, give us at least, some kind of places that we can add some storage and galleries for raw materials, wood and aluminum and other stuff. We lost 20,000 square feet, that's a significant number. And, if you take away the height, there's no point to it anymore. There's no way how we're going to function over there. Perhaps you guys can tell me, I'm owning the property, I have to move away from it, why do you think can be put over there? I don't think so anybody will come over there.
All right, does that conclude the presentation?
With regard to the applicant, Mr. Chairman, we'd still like
Yes.
to have the board hear from,
Yeah, all right, then let's move on.
Okay, the changes to the site plan were nominal for this submission. They were based really in comments we received last time. The key comment was to try to keep a 10-foot buffer along the eastern property line. That buffer would include no land disturbance or grading. So there are a handful of trees along that buffer that would stay. In addition to that, the landscaping plan that was prepared, that was reviewed by the planning board, part of the secret determination, was substantial and robust. I believe, and I believe the planning board thought so as well. So this area in between the retaining wall of the property line would be supplemented by significant plantings and screenings, which, the discussions were had with the neighbor. The lighting was also discussed. The typical standard is 0.1 foot candles at the property line. But with respect to the topography and the lighting that we do have shown in our site plan, we do have an isolux curve, which shows that it's going to be 0.0. The lighting will diminish, very close to the property line. It's not even going to be the 0.1 that's typically allowed. So the remainder of the site plan is the same. Wetlands were discussed, and I can't speak to what was filled in before in the history, but as you all know, and with the planning board, the wetlands are very important. There's no disturbance proposed at the wetlands at all, and they've been flagged, they will be documented, and it's going to be part of the construction to make sure that there's no intrusion into the wetlands. So that really shouldn't be a consideration for future development of the site. So yeah, again, it was the building height that is a variance we're still requesting, and it was the development coverage was the other variance that we are requesting. I have my notes over there, but I believe originally the development coverage was proposed to be 62.19%. I think the code allows 40% maximum, and the existing approved site plan has 45% development coverage. This site plan is a nominal increase over the approved site plan. You are requesting 47% development coverage, and then again, that's with significant use of grass paved where it's appropriate for additional parking. The remainder of the final variances that were received, we are still requesting for this application. They are at or below the variance thresholds that were requested originally. And just one other point to reiterate, the building itself with respect to height, it's a single slope roof. It slopes downhill to the backyard. The existing building, while acknowledged it is smaller, is sited closer to the street. So this building is pushed back closer to the rear yard. previous variance that was requested for rear yard of 15 feet, that has been eliminated. We are at the 50-foot setback for this building. So we're as far back as we can get, with this building siting on the property. So if there's any other questions with respect to the site plan, I'll do my best to answer them.
I guess I have one question. You mentioned that there was a 10-foot buffer.
Yes.
Since, the gentlemen both had a conversation, are you able to then increase that to what they agreed upon for the 25-foot buffer?
So definitely,
Do we know any potential impacts of doing that in terms of zoning?
in terms of zoning, no, not necessarily, but the additional, so the buffer that's proposed here is no disturbance. No grading, no cutting down trees, you know, whatever's there along that 10-foot strip stays. When we get beyond that 10 feet, then we start sloping down in the topography. I believe schematically we have it shown here. It's going to slope down at about a 3-on-1 slope. A couple of points where it gets tight, we're going to go down to a 2.5-on-1 slope. Just for perspective, a 3-on-1 slope is typically you're able to plant grass on it and mow it with a lawn. 2.5-on-1 slope, again, it's not the whole run. That gets a little steeper. Sometimes you have to incorporate more erosion control and add better planting to make sure that the soil, the slope of the soil is safe. So if we kept it 25-foot, no disturbance, that would mean this retaining wall here would be higher. Because we couldn't get downhill as fast as we're proposing to try to limit the height of this retaining wall. So again, it's doable. It certainly could be done. It's just going to add to the cost of the wall. This retaining wall really is kind of, it's shielded from the uphill neighbor because it would be down here with an over that wall. Those will largely shielded from Sterling Line Road by the building itself. So to go another 25 feet, there's zero disturbance. It's also going to limit the planting that we can do as well. It kind of gives us, we're trying to save the trees along the property line. And obviously we don't want to cut down trees to plant new trees. But allowing that room to work, in our opinion, the landscape architect's opinion, will allow a much more effective and robust planting plan in terms of removing more of the scrub and providing more screening of landscaping in its place.
So the buffer itself, it's more are you saying that it's more beneficial to not have additional buffer, but instead have the landscaping added there for, to block?
Yeah, and we can call it a buffer, it's just, it's a buffer that would be disturbed in terms of grading, but it's not gonna have any structures in that post-construction.
I just feel like there should be some sort of condition, since the two gentlemen went offline and discussed some kind of agreement to have more buffer, more planting, and as the gentleman said, additional plantings to, I know it's only 0 lumens or whatever, you said, that that it would block additional, any kind of lighting in his direction of his household, because, I think we can all agree that the lighting is, I know in my own personal life, that it is very disruptive to have lighting glaring into your property. And so if the gentleman had come to an agreement offline, I think it should be included as some sort of condition. And maybe you could add it there, or maybe Kelly can speak to it.
It sounds like it would be, it is planning, however, if they're considering it not really in terms of light and they're considering it in terms of buffering the height that you're requesting, it sounds like it would be a 10-foot no disturb, and then on top, like first 10 feet, no disturb.
Yes.
Next, was it 15 feet? Or then it would be no construction, but disturbance in terms of they can grade it, they can plant on it. If you have a no disturb buffer, they can't even plant trees. So if you have the two next to each other, they can't touch this one. Sorry, Frank. They can't touch this one, but they can touch the second half. Can't even tell if you can see mine. Okay.
I mean, I think that
So-
should be included, so at least the neighbor won't have to worry that something that he discussed will happen.
And anything that you do too, I would say would be conditioned upon supplemental landscaping set by the planning board when they look at it from also the lighting aspect as well as, you know, the retaining wall being there and things like that.
Mhm.
They would be reviewing the landscape architect's plans, but your resolution taking into account those would also say, or decision, not resolution, I'm sorry. Subject to supplemental plantings approved by the planning board.
I would
To
think- I think
incorporate
that
both of
should be-
those. Okay.
You know, I think if you could agree with that, that's important, I think.
You also brought up that you're saying there's trees. The trees that are between the property lines now are less, it takes up less than 10 feet off the property line if they're off the property line at all. Because that's a tight line coming between my driveway and that property. You keep saying that there's trees beyond that. It made it sound like there's trees beyond that 10 foot in there, and it's not. There's a lot of shrubbery, things like that, but full-grown trees are probably 5 feet off the edge of my driveway, which is very close to the property line.
Yeah.
And then if we go back a little further, if I may. Only lived there for 30 years. This represents Curly My Road, it's my driveway's here, but as you come up the driveway, right here, so there's maybe 12 trees up along here in a row, and then there's shorter shrubs that come up here. And then there's a flat area right here. That has nothing on it, and there's nothing beyond that that you can see straight across to the property line.
So if you go about at that 10 feet, and so we mapped the trees, this is the field survey, and I believe we mapped, trees with a minimum diameter of 8 inches. So we have at or about that line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
But now you're getting past my property, which is, how far back was this?
Right here.
Oh, that's right, you moved the building forward, right, the fire department told you to get that close to the property line. Right? So you might have.
Have a problem with this vehicle.
Norm told me that, well, it was back further, then you had to move it forward, right, Norm?
No.
It's still a public hearing for the ZBA. Can all of the comments be directed
Yeah.
towards the ZBA?
Alright,
Sorry,
So-
you can stay over there and.
no, so I don't need that.
I just want to make sure that it's.
No, I just,
Clear.
that, you know, it made it sound like there's 10 feet of trees there, it's not 10, that I got, that it was 10 feet deep in trees, and it's not 10 feet deep in trees, they're mostly single trees that are a couple, 5 to 8 feet apart going up the driveway. And then beyond that is grafting all shrubbery, and then you have that low rise wall right there, which is probably about 60 feet off the property.
Right, so this is your property line, your shared property line right here. So I was simply running from front to back of the property and counting the trees that are 8 inches in diameter, that are located within this corridor that's on our property, but in that 10 feet area that we're proposed to save. So as I count, going from front to back.
You're telling me there's 12 trees in there on your property that are greater than 8 feet around?
Within 10 feet of the property line, yes,
On your property or on my property line?
on our property.
I don't think that's correct.
Well,
But
this was surveyed and.
I know you're.
We are talking 370 feet from front to back. So it's going along that 370 feet.
Your property goes back 370 feet.
Yes.
Mine doesn't. Just saying, I mean,
It is what it is.
right, well, say your property, my property goes back about 210 feet. But if you're gonna continue beyond that, my
You have
property,
back
that's
lot.
not what I care about.
All right, you have the back lot, so going where your property line.
On the front lot.
Oh, yeah, okay, you're the front lot.
Mhm.
So Kevin,
Right.
some of this is planning board discussion.
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying, and I certainly empathize with you, but I think this is material in the planning schedules. We will condition, obviously, as we did last time with some sort of security to make sure if plants die, they come back. And I recognize they're not going to be putting 40-foot trees back there, but these I think are better suited for the planning board. Because truthfully, there's not really much we can do except let John know, and I think John is still on the call, so he would be hearing these concerns.
Yes.
And if it's not 12 trees, there will be at least 12 trees.
Okay, but let's end
So,
that.
so what I'd like to do is, I don't know, Dan, do you still have more of a presentation here?
I don't think so, Mr.
All right, so what I'd like to do is if there's any other questions from the board members, working from Russ down, and then back to Kevin to kind of wrap up what we have here. So I don't know if Russ, you have any other questions?
Yeah, I drove through there on Sunday about 50 miles an hour coming around that corner by that light. The light was green, and coming around that corner, I would highly doubt I have 400 feet of visual to that driveway. And if that tractor trailer, 40 feet long, is making a left turn in there, bad accident. I can see it happening. And if you had somebody out there directing traffic when they're pulling in there,
Traffic is something that was studied by the planning board.
I'm sorry?
Traffic is something that was studied by the planning board and isn't before this.
wasn't done very well. Because there's probably no traffic count done there. There's thousands of cars that come by there every day.
That I would say take
I
up the
could just see problems, but I don't have control over that. The DOT said, I guess you didn't require a turning lane there, correct? Is that what they said? They didn't say. They have a turning lane on the other side of the hill. Because your house. I mean.
They need to get a permit from the DOT and it's subject to DOT approval, but that hasn't been done yet.
And that's the normal.
I can see
Process.
The plans were.
Especially if it's slippery in the summertime, they're trying to make a left turn. Cars coming around that corner in the morning, there's thousands of cars come through there in the morning, every day. You don't live there. And when that road is closed, the hill is closed, where do they come? Come through Eagle Valley. Are you aware of that? Are you not? Yes, no?
Well, I can
No,
tell you
yes.
that, I was a paramedic for 9 years.
Yes.
What I've seen on the road is, has nothing to do.
I mean,
with accidents.
I think there should be something to rectify the traffic problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
Because those cars fly around that corner, they know it's 2 lanes coming up that hill, and they're on that gas pedal. You don't live there because you don't see it. I live there.
Only point is.
So Russ, I, obviously I too am very familiar. It's just, it's outside our purview to do something, right? I mean, we can identify the concern, but there's really nothing we can do about it.
I have no further comments or questions.
Thank you. Chris?
I'll ask Kevin a question.
Yep.
Okay, Kevin, what we were talking about here today, the additional 15-foot buffer, giving them that 25-foot buffer we were just kind of going over. What are your feelings towards the building height if you were to have that buffer?
Well, the question I would have to ask first is, there was talk of digging down 5 feet to put this building in originally. Is that still in play or is that not in play?
5 feet is another $100,000.
So you're just gonna stay at grade level that it is at now, right?
I think the building height is measured from grade up top is 45 feet. Is that right, Ken?
So the grade on that property is gonna stay where it is. You know,
In terms of the building height,
Yeah.
yes.
That's what I mean, because that would have brought up a ton of other questions. I just wanted to ask that anyway, but, what you have is, front of the building is like state of the art %. It's gonna be designed real nice. glass, aluminum, whole 9 yards. And then he's gonna have prefabricated facade coming around the side, is my understanding, like a brick and mortar type look, you know. Right, I mean, I don't know, you know, concrete look, whatever, you know,
It'd be concrete or not? In the front would be glass and.
No, and
the sides of the building, what,
Sides of the building would be mostly big doors.
you're going 45 foot up, I don't, or 30, even 30 foot up as it slopes down, you don't have a 30-foot drop.
The back of the building will not be a full 45 feet up.
The side facing my house.
What are the
Second to
sides
that.
constructed out of?
Block or is it metal? Be a combination of metal, we're pricing it out, metal or block, we're pricing it out. Either cinder block or metal, yeah, pricing it out.
Yeah, it depends how they grade that out with, you know, the trees, I would like to see further back on that, closer to that 20-foot buffer that he and I talked about. And I had that 20-foot buffer not even ever be developed at all. And you're gonna put in, I understand, 10-foot, 12-foot high trees that are gonna grow over years.
You want evergreens in the buffer zone?
They brought that up. They had some type of, I've seen them, we use them outside that, well, not we, but when they build data centers, they use them to hide the data centers. They're straight up cylinder type trees and they're green and I call them evergreen sometimes, and they like flat.
Arborvitae, yeah, arborvitae.
I don't want to get into too much
But
of the
anyway.
detail.
That's not, purpose.
Okay.
Purpose of my question was, if you were having buffer, or you're gonna be looking,
Right.
if you were to have the buffer, how do you feel?
It's hard for me to say, because I'm, you know, at one point you're looking at a business that's apparently 7:30, 4:30, something like that, Frank, 7:30 to 5:30,
Mm-hmm. Right,
you know, Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, no weekends.
And I can vouch that he doesn't keep vehicles on his parking lot during the weekend. So, you know, I'm kind of on the fence, Chris, you know, at one point, yeah, it doesn't, is it a good fit for the, you know, for limited hours, limited like that, you know, limited basis, nothing on the weekends, which I kind of appreciate, you know. At the same time, you know, how long before those trees grow that we're gonna look at that building? You know, I don't have a clear picture of what the building looks like to say, hey, this is gonna be a fit, and I don't know if I want to commit myself 100% to saying this is a good fit for the neighborhood, because I don't know if it's a 100% good fit for the neighborhood. And I appreciate
whatever
the
the
time.
proposed building is that make up a great difference in the height of the building between his house and.
I believe the slopes even higher, so it's hard to shield the entire building from, as we continue to go uphill. I would have to look at the topography of the adjacent property on that property. The fact that it wouldn't be deciduous would make it year round. Oh, that's right.
Chris, and any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Sharon?
I have no further questions.
All right, Ken, I mean, you're there, Ken. I don't know if you have any questions.
Oh, whoops, sorry, I turned it too far.
Yeah, they pay for it.
I was just asking Kevin, Carpenter, right, Kevin?
DOP one forward and 8 or 9 and top.
I was just speaking with Kevin if there was any landscaping that could possibly be added to his property at the applicant's expense that could improve his situation. I believe he said no.
No, we have the tree line there now. Then that goes up and then there's a little vacant area. And then it heads into 639 Sterling Line Road after.
You want a nice fence?
What do I want a fence for?
No.
You're really building a big border here.
Ken, did you have anything further?
Sorry.
Nope. Just trying to keep it moving.
No. keep- yeah.
All right, Kevin, anything else?
I think the board,
Oh.
some very reasonable questions about considering the bar joists and as the applicant was mentioning, the fan issue seems to be not totally detailed. So no, I don't have any further questions.
All right. Kevin?
So last meeting, Frank, we talked about parking on Sterling Mine Road. And you had said that there'd be no parking on Sterling Mine Road, I believe?
Yeah, we will condition any decision with the similar conditions we put on the first one, and that included a recommendation from the county that there be no parking on Sterling Mine Road, and there'd be signage to that effect.
Sterling Mine Road in that too, would that be included?
The grass.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Would that include like the grassy area on Sterling Mine Road across from his building and down going towards the corner of Long Meadow Road and Sterling Mine Road?
Do you permit?
Well, there's already people selling vehicles on that lot, and the bikers on the weekend are parking there, right? I can't necessarily control that state parkland.
Who would, what about parking for his construction workers? If this does get approved, who would that fall under?
That would be in the planning board's purview to identify during their site plan process.
I asked the question.
Hey, the chairman's right
Mhm.
there. I'm right here.
Yep.
Because as far as on-street parking, things like that, you know, when the construction is in process, if it does go through, they should also have to make remediation, for, you know, have areas for their workers and stuff to park as opposed to scattering the cars all over the lower Eagle Valley area there.
Duly noted. I'll bring that to the planning board. Got that, John?
Yeah, he still got it.
All right.
No, I understand. Some things that I bring up.
Yes, yeah, I heard that, Kelly.
Thanks, John.
Last month, was there, in the minutes, was there a width of the building that came out? Footage and length of the building, or
Last month, this wasn't on the agenda.
2 months ago?
Oh, 2
Last
months
month, we
ago.
didn't have a meeting.
Yeah, we have the print right here. It's like 322 feet long by
115.
Chris got it.
115. Yeah, I'm kind of moving stuff around trying to find it.
I just comparing it to what he has, as Norm and I were talking about it. He showed some comparisons to his existing building to the one that he wants to put in there.
Yeah, so this one has a total footage of almost 51,000 square feet. And I don't remember. I think the Hillburn building is like in the 20s or something.
I thought it was 47, somebody had said earlier.
Yeah, no, I take that back. This is office assembly, total footprint 44,350. Total area must be with loading docks and some outside paving is like 50, almost 51.
That's all I have, Frank. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you to the board for allowing me to speak. I apologize for getting long-winded if I did, or getting off key.
Well, you're probably the most impacted, so the fact that you're here is important. So thank you. All right, what I'm going to propose, we'll do the 5-part test. And then what I proposed is we'll do, as we did last time, each of the variances independently. The variances that were offered last time, as we've stated in the past, in both my opinion and that of our council, is that they're moot. The decision is made for the specific application. The application's changed, therefore we need to redo those particular variances. And as I've mentioned a couple times, we've been talking about any variance granted will be conditioned upon those same conditions that we entered into or agreed to at the last meeting for the prior submittal. And I will read those as we get to that point. I think what I'd like to do now is do the 5-part test.
Frank, Mark's
Mr.
got a
Chairman,
question.
point of order. As we are repeating votes on variances that were already taken, is there any method we can use tonight to provide the members with information as to how they voted last night?
Absolutely, but you can't look at Frank when I tell you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually can provide, well, if Kelly can provide that, it'll be easier, but I do have that information, but whatever's easier, if you want to do it, Kelly or myself, but,
Consistency, I would really like to
Right.
know.
Okay, hold on.
Yes. You'd like to-
So that's how I'm gonna offer to move forward. And before we do that, I guess what I'll formally close the public hearing unless there's any other comments by the board members. If not, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this particular project and yeah, Skyview Skylights. And may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All right, so in terms of the conditions and how they voted, you have that, Kelly?
I do.
Okay, so I'm going to start the 5-part test. Then I'll go to the conditions, and then I'll go to each of the variances. And I think the other thing about the variances, they are going to be different in terms of, though we may have approved or not approved, for the most part, they're all different. And I think for many cases, they're actually less. So with the exception of building height. So let me go with the 5-part test. And to Mark's point, I thought we had some really good discussion on this stuff as well when we talked about these, but we'll have the same here, I hope. First factor, whether the area variance will produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. I would offer this is parkland and residential, and that indeed this is a significant change to the character of the neighborhood. So I will suggest yes to that question. Any other differing opinions, please state. All right. Question or factor 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant by the area variance can feasibly be achieved without an area variance. I guess, you know, regardless of what the applicant said, the fact the variances required and the conditions of the prior code compared to this code are not all that different, and that due diligence probably should have been done even under the old code, which would have required substantial variances. So I do believe, you know, there's a benefit that can be achieved without an area variance. So I'm going to say yes. Is there any other differing opinion? All right, factor 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. And while there's been a tremendous effort on the part of the applicant to reduce the amount of variances and their magnitude, as we've had with the other 2 applicants this evening, I think any area variance is generally substantial. And so I answer yes to that. Any differing opinion? All right, question 4, factor 4, whether the area variance will have an adverse physical or environmental effect or impact on the neighborhood or district. I will defer to the decisions of the planning board and the secret process in which they provided a negative declaration. And I will answer no. I suspect we will have some differing opinions. If there aren't, they may be stated.
Yeah, I stated my objection to the secret determination and by the planning board, and I stand by that objection.
Understood. All right, thank you. And then final, whether the applicant's difficulty with complying with the zoning restrictions as stated in the code is self-created. And as we've discussed, though counsel for the applicant may disagree, I would say yes, this is a self-created difficulty. Any differing opinion? All right. Then with that out of the way, and again, as we've made note in the last couple applications this evening, affirmative or negative answers to these questions does not mean that we will not or cannot provide the variance, and that any variance we offer will be the minimum variance necessary to preserve or protect the character of the neighborhood and health, safety, and welfare of the community. On the last application, there was a number of conditions that were put forth. I think there might be one or two new ones. I don't know if I caught them all. So Kelly, if we have a couple new ones, we can add them. For the board's and applicant's benefit, any variances created will be conditioned upon the following. And I would make a motion to for these factors as soon as I'm done reading them. No work shall be performed by the applicant or its business on the weekend. All parking stalls proposed to be land banked shall be constructed. Consistent with the comments of the Orange County Department of Planning, the applicant shall install signage warning vehicles against parking along Sterling Mine Road, also known as County Route 72. There shall be no overnight outdoor storage of materials, products, or finished materials except for debris that is placed within appropriate receptacles. There will be no outdoor manufacturing performed at any time. With the exception of loading and unloading of products, all doors shall be closed when the operation is in service. A financial security shall be provided for the maintenance of the landscaping in an amount acceptable to the town engineer and in a form acceptable to the town attorney. And any signage installed on the property shall not be illuminated. And I think we might have something about the no construction zone and supplemental plantings. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah, so I'll have to craft that condition, but it would be the 10 feet no disturbance and then the 15 feet no construction. And then the board also requested no mechanicals to be located on the roof. It will all be interior to the building. Same, and that the trash cannot be picked up prior to 6 a.m.
All right,
And-
so we have 11 conditions there. And only because I have it in front of me, everyone voted in the affirmative or aye for those conditions the last time we had that vote. So I will make a motion that we condition any variance granted upon the 11 conditions that have just been stated. And myself, aye. Russ?
Wait, we need a second.
Oh, sorry, second, please.
Mark seconded it.
All right, thank you. Myself, aye. Russ?
Yes.
All right, Mark? Okay, Chris? And Sharon?
Aye.
All right, so it sounds like that passed.
Yeah.
Okay, let the games begin here. All right, the first variance I'm going to go through is the minimum front yard. Table general use and bulk requirements for a neighborhood business district requires a minimum front yard of 75 feet. The applicant is proposing a front yard of 69.1. This is a variance of 5.9 feet. This variance was previously granted by the ZBA for a larger setback in connection with the original application. So this is actually less than what was previously requested and previously approved. Make a motion to accept the minimum front yard at 5.9 feet. Second, please.
That was Chris. And just so everybody knows, everybody voted aye on this one.
All
Not you.
right.
When I say everybody, I don't mean you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chris wasn't right. So Frank, aye. Russ?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Chris? And Sharon? All right, motion passes. All right, the next one is minimum lot depth. The table general use and bulk requirements, neighborhood business district requires a minimum lot depth of 200 feet. The applicant is proposing a lot depth of 177 feet, but this is an existing non-conformity. So similar to the other non-conformities, we tend to formally adopt these so that they're in the record. And this variance was also previously granted by the ZBA in connection with the larger application. So really what we're looking for here is a variance of 23 feet on an existing nonconformity. So I'll make a motion that we provide minimum lot depth variance of 23 feet, which recognizes the existing nonconformity. May I have a second?
Chris seconded it and you all voted aye on this one previously.
All right, so I tell you what, raise your hands. Everybody's aye?
We got, yep, everybody's an aye.
Very good, thank you. All right, we'll go to maximum development coverage. The table of general use and bulk requirements in this district, the MP district, permits a maximum development coverage of 40%. The applicant's proposing a development coverage of 47%, which is a variance of 7%. This is a pretty significant reduction from the prior development coverage. I think the prior application requested a variance of over 25%. So this is a pretty substantial reduction down to 7%. I don't think everybody voted aye on this, but Kelly will know that for certain. So
Russ voted in favor of the last one. Everybody else voted no.
all right, so I'll make a motion to grant a maximum development coverage of 47%, which is a 7% variance. Yeah, 7% variance. And so myself, I'll vote aye.
Wait, we need it. Oh, thank you.
Second, yeah, I'm sorry. Second, please. It's getting late.
You've got a
Is someone
second.
second? Very
Yeah.
good, thank you. So I'll vote aye.
And okay, let me know if you want aye. Okay, you got all ayes.
Okay. Very good. Motion carries. Parking is, the applicant has indicated that the proposed use requires 141 parking spaces in accordance with the town code section 98, section 32, or section 98, part 32. The applicant is proposing 85 parking spaces, including the land banked spaces. So that's a variance of 56 spaces. We had previously granted this variance on the application for the larger structure. The prior application requested a variance of 133 spaces. So this is a reduction of 77 spaces or 56 space variance. So I'll make a motion that we provide a parking variance of 56 spaces for this project. May I have a second?
Okay.
And you
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say myself, aye.
aye. Okay, all aye.
Okay, very good. And my earbuds are about to die, so hopefully I can get through all this. Let's see, the retaining wall. The applicant is proposing a retaining wall in the side yard ranging from 10 to 13.3 feet, where 6 feet is permitted, thus requesting a variance of 7.3 feet. This variance was previously granted by the ZBA in conjunction with the larger structure. So really what we're asking for is a retaining wall variance of 7.3 feet. So I'll make a motion that we grant a 7.3 foot retaining wall variance. May I have a second?
Oh, you take that.
Chris, okay, so for this one, Frank and Sharon voted aye, Russ and Mark voted no.
All right, we have a second. I'll vote aye.
If you, Russ is aye.
Aye.
Okay, all aye.
All right, and then I think the last one we have is the maximum building height. And in the neighborhood business district, table general use and bulk requirements permit a maximum building height of 30 feet. The applicant is proposing a building height of 45 feet. This will be a 15-foot variance. So I'll make a motion to grant a maximum building height variance of 15 feet. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, and we know this one didn't carry last time. Was this a split vote?
This was a split vote. Sharon voted aye, Omar voted aye, Frank, Mark, and Russ voted nay.
All right, so I will vote aye.
Russ is aye,
No.
Mark is no,
No.
Chris is no, Sharon is aye. It passes.
All right.
6-2.
This motion carries. All right, I think I have all the variances. Anything I'm missing, Kelly? I don't think so.
Nope, not.
Yeah, I'm looking at his other drawings as well. All right, so in conclusion, it looks like the requested 6 variances carry. Along with the 11 conditions that have been placed on approval, and the applicant may now proceed to the planning board. I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, consistent with the other applications, as you heard, I'll be drafting a written decision for the chairman's signature. When he signs it, he'll get it to Deborah. Deborah will give you a copy. You're already before the planning board, so you can reach out to Deborah, who will reach out to the chairman to see when you can be on a planning board meeting, and you can go from there.
Regardless of how anyone voted tonight, I want to thank all of you people for listening. And very forward to being proven correct about the benefit that my client is going to bring to this town. That he is going to be faithful and carry out all the promises that he has made. And a lot of the concerns that were expressed, we agree with, but we don't control. But we have to do request and be united when we deal with the DOT and council and all the other agencies that have to deal with. Once again, doing this for 35 years, in spite of what I wrote in the lawsuit, I'll explain that.
Not now. You won't explain it now. You just gave yourself another year of experience. It might be because of the length of tonight's meeting, Sam. I'm gonna check that out.
Really appreciate it. And,
Okay.
thank you. Mr. Supervisor. Thank you.
All right, any other business to be conducted before the board?
Deborah's-
Hearing none. Yeah, so I'll make a motion to conclude at 9:56. May I have a second?
Does anybody want to second the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Sharon seconded it.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Everybody.
Oh,
wanna
thank you
vote?
very much, appreciate it.
Oh, I was like, Rich, you're not voting aye?
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
everyone, and thanks for putting
Thank
me
you.
up
Enjoy your trip.
here. Yep, we'll be talking. Bye-bye.
Bye.